I learned a long time ago that there's a big difference between proving or improving yourself. If I live in fear that I need to prove the whole time that I'm worthy of being here, that typically very much gets in the way of learning. If you are somewhere where you're encouraged to improve, magic happens.
Welcome to a brand new episode of our podcast, Human and AI, Mind Machines and the Gradient Descent.
Thanks for tuning in to our geeky podcast, where we discuss the fascinating field of AI and machine learning, corporate craziness, passion for technology, and the role of humans. We're your hosts, Uli and Abri, and we're happy to have you with us today.
We are living in times of ambidexterity. That's so a tough word, isn't it? Like at the very beginning. So meaning simultaneously somehow exploring, exploiting, running and reinventing the business, right? Today we're diving into not only the section of 2 dimensions, but actually a couple of dimensions, such as people, such as technology, such as sustainability, right? And we're exploiting what leadership traits in the age of AI are, the role of data literacy, and which human-centered approaches are essential in the AI revolution.
And we couldn't be more excited about our guest today, someone who brings a truly people-first perspective to the technological transformation happening in organizations worldwide.
Our guest, as said, has unique dual responsibility, both people, sustainability, to areas which she's as a deeply interconnected. They actually are. And we'll probably learn about this today. She knows about the human-centric leadership style that highlights genuine collaboration, empowering and diverse teams. Well, that sounds awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, so please join us in welcoming none other than Managing Board Member and Chief People and Sustainability Officer at Siemens, Judith Wiese. Judith, we're grateful to have you here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So actually, we already met Judith during the AI with Purpose Summit here in Munich, and you had a rockstar keynote speech. And there was something that you said that really stuck with me. You said the reason why you joined Siemens was for the deep love for people and technology and what technology can do for people. So maybe you can share a little bit more about that. Like, why does the intersection between people and technology resonate so much with you?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's really important that we all kind of find our why. Why do we get out of bed in the morning? And for me, that's always been, the intellectual challenge of business, understanding new technology, but then the kind of messiness that comes with people. And I think at the end of the day, business is emotional as well. Business is the energy that we inject and the energy that we get out of other people. And when I joined you for the AI Summit, I thought, what can I tell people who know so much more about AI as a technology than I do? And that brings us to, one of the things that we talk quite a bit about at Siemens, which is technology with purpose, because I believe that at the end of the day, the purpose lies in how technology gets applied. A lot of technology, in a way, is agnostic. And it very much is in the beholder's eye in terms of what you're really going to apply it for. And Siemens has this wonderful history of 177 years of really driving technology that changes and transforms life and the backbone of society. And that is what gets me out of bed. It's making things better for the people, and whether that is, sustainability and the planet, or whether it is through technology. And clearly AI has a huge role to play here if applied with purpose.
You know what? We love actually cool quotes here at the podcast. One of this podcast quote is from 27, actually, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. Pretty bold prediction. Software is eating the world, which is actually Horowitz quote back in the days, right? But AI is going to eat software, right? So looking at how AI transformed somehow since the rise of, let's say, the ChatGPT momentum, November 2022, right? Every board, I guess also you, right, has impact. And it's like, okay, that's more relevant than ever, right? So I'm curious to see, what typical workday has this changed on your side, right? And how has this accelerated maybe also your personal life and professional life in the adoption of that? Can you share a bit on?
Well, first of all, I thought I could impress my son with talking about ChatGPT and the likes, only to find that he was way ahead of me in terms of finding personal applications for school, right?
Yeah, technology adoption
so
comes
that
different.
didn't quite work out in the way that I had planned it. And then, of course, I'm very fortunate that I get a lot of people helping me with my everyday life. But of course, I've started to use ChatGPT and AI technology as many users would. So where does it find me in the loved applications that, as office people we work with on an everyday basis? And I really do appreciate what ChatGPT and our Siemens version of ChatGPT can do for us. But also, just the little things that we get through Office applications, whether it summarizes things for us, condenses things that otherwise, would take me ages to read, I highly appreciate as well. So those are things, where it finds me in my day to day. But then, as somebody who is responsible for people in this business, and also for productivity, and for a successful business as a board member, there's always three buckets in which I think of AI. One is, how do we get AI to find people from an awareness perspective, from a learning perspective? And that is for everybody. And I put myself in the everybody bucket in that way. Then there is a second one, which is, how do we find and define really well the business cases where we think it could have the biggest impact for us? And what can I do to help, systematize these things for Siemens? Because we're so big, that some things you want grassroots, coming up through grassroots, but other things you do want a bit orchestrated. So that is one of the things that is always interesting for me as well. And then the third one is, what kind of capabilities do we have? Are we fast enough in really making sure AI gets into the core of our portfolio? And how can we make sure that, with the speed of development, we make sure that we participate as Siemens? Because we've been doing industrial AI, since the 70s, but to now marry it with the really exciting developments that come with large language models, generative AI, and whatever else, the future holds in a pretty short period of time, I'm sure. I think that is really critical for us in terms of business success going forward.
Cool.
Yeah, and you just touched upon it, and you actually touched upon lots of things that we want to dive deeper into in just a few minutes. But maybe if we go back to that aspect that AI is becoming more and more an integral part of our everyday lives, and with that somehow also the responsibility grows that we use it in a purposeful way. And you also mentioned that Siemens has been in the field for very long for decades actually, in the field of industrial AI, long before maybe lots of AI players were even founded. So in your view, what makes Siemens' approach to AI so different from maybe like the more traditional consumer AI applications?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it starts with a big delineation of what is business to consumer and business to business. And just how we deal with data is therefore also important, because, it's very different whether you deal with a person's, a consumer's, or some of our people's data, or whether it is about, what you learned through industrial processes and machines. But I think that Siemens and Europe, quite frankly, sits on a massive industrial base. This is really something, where Europe always had a USP, where Germany had a USP. And so the question is, what can we do with this wealth of data? And how can we, again, marry it with something that comes through industrial grade AI, physics-based algorithms? Predictive maintenance is one of those use cases that we've been working on for a long time. How can we now really marry that? How can we make, that richness of data accessible first and foremost, but then how can we turn that into even more intelligent and smart products for our customers and for ourselves? Because that's the other thing that I love about Siemens. A lot of the time, what we offer our customers, we actually have the chance to test ourselves in our own operations. But I'm really proud because we've had now for the longest time 1,500 AI experts across the organization. We're one of the big filers of patents. Certainly in Europe, we're absolutely leading. And we're doing this together with partners in terms of making AI truly applied, scalable in the industrial space, and that is really highly relevant for our customers as well. Who are still on a journey to digitalize, but also when I think about sustainability outcomes that we want to scale, is really, really interesting what AI can do at this wonderful nexus of digital and sustainable. To help make a difference. But of course, industrial AI cannot hallucinate. If you run big processes, if you run big plants, that AI cannot hallucinate. It's got to be safe. It's got to be reliable. It's got to be trustworthy. And I think this is one of the big points of differentiation. So, in Siemens, we often talk about how we want AI to be three things. We want it to be robust, so that we do this, like I said, in a way that is reliable, secure, trustworthy. We do it with partners, with purpose. And I said a little bit about purpose at the beginning. So, how are we going to apply it? How are we going to scale high quality impact? And then how do we democratize it? How do we actually make this accessible for many people? And very often, we talk about small, medium-sized enterprises now as well. And I think, making sure that we create scalable products, not just for big customers, big global accounts, but for the many that are out there that probably, have less infrastructure and resources and capabilities themselves. How can we actually make this helpful for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's zoom into it. Interesting. So let's zoom a little. If, most recently my daughter came and said like, hey, ChatGPT said that, right? And it's like, maybe it doesn't know the answer. Maybe it's slightly wrong, right? Maybe it has this aspects of hallucination. But then reflecting this on our customer aspects, robustness becomes quite distrustworthiness. We are Siemens, right? Everyone knows Siemens is maybe a bit more expensive sometimes, right? But it has this trustworthiness, not only in terms of the brand, but also on the physical products. Now we're converging now into a software company, right? And so the aspects, the expectation from our customers, I guess, is also that implementing AI in the industrial settings comes with complete other complexity, which we may be ready or not. So how do you see it, the role of robustness in critical environments that we, try to enable for our customers?
Now, again, the good news here is we haven't started since yesterday or since, AI had a big hype with the inception of ChatGPT. We have been one of the founders of the Charter of Trust together with other companies, because we felt that anything that we do that is increasingly software enabled, digital, our customers need to trust, that we're not only brilliant at doing great, reliable hardware, but anything that is software infused also goes by the same standards. We have quite a large investment into R&D that we undertake every year. About 8% of our revenue goes into R&D. And of course, R&D is increasingly actually, based around software as well, and not just hardware. So that is clearly an area of focus. We have core technologies that we invest in. AI is and has been one of them. Cybersecurity we do for ourselves, but we also do it for our products. And then, of course, we're investing more and more also in companies with capabilities. And the recent acquisition and closing of Altair is an example like that. And then, as I said earlier, we're very often, what we call customer zero. So we test our own products on ourselves. And the Siemens Industrial Copilot is something that we have to develop together with a partner, together with Microsoft. And here we have created something that is Gen AI powered in terms of how human and machine collaboration can work in manufacturing, and we're testing this on ourselves, and we're testing it with many customers out there, and I think around 100 have now adopted that into their operations. But again, we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't even launch something like that if it hadn't been thoroughly tested to be reliable, to be trustworthy, to be safe.
Yeah, and that's very important also with regards to maintaining credibility, especially with this ever changing or ever evolving technology. And I mean, deploying responsible AI or robust AI also connects nicely to like that we do technology with purpose at Siemens. And you already touched upon, but I would like to dive a little deeper. So what does technology with purpose mean, or what does that purpose pillar really mean to you? And what real world examples do you maybe also have for us where you are seeing that AI is really applied with a clear intent and a clear purpose? So what impact can that actually have?
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about the what and the how, yeah? And I'll come on to some of the examples of the what. But I think a big question that any company needs to ask itself is where do you choose to play? Yeah? So what kind of products, what kind of portfolio are you creating, and what kind of use cases does that serve, and is there purpose in that? Yeah? Does this help make the world a more livable place? Does this help in terms of productivity, given that we're challenged from a demographics perspective? So there is something around productivity and prosperity in the way that our societies are developing as well. And is some of what we're doing contributing positively or not? So there is something in where do you choose to play? What is your portfolio? And then there is the how. Yeah? So how are you going about some of the developments? Is it human-centric? What kind of values guide you? How do you set up governance? Because we also have governance bodies internally. There's obviously standards and EU acts that don't leave this to chance for anybody. But I think on top of that, it's about how you really do that internally as well, and the tone that you set and the processes that you follow. But let me give you some examples on the what. Yeah, where do we choose to play? And one example that I would like to give, that of course plays into sustainability as well, is how we can discover water leakages with the help of AI, because a lot of water simply goes wasted, through the pipes, and very often that is around about 30%, can be more, depending on where you are. And at the same time, the global demand for water rises by 1 percentage point every year. So this is really critical again, to make sure that this gets fixed. And here we actually have a chance to do that. We've got a number of customers by now. We have one in Sweden where we have recently been able to demonstrate how, and they lost around 10% of drinking water. That just disappeared through the system, and we were able to save about 20% of that through our technology. So this is I think a great example. The other one that I would say is, we know how energy hungry data centers are and how important cooling is in terms of making a data center run energy efficient. And also here, we have AI powering solutions that help optimize cooling and manage temperature and airflow in server areas dynamically. And again, it's predictive algorithms that play a big role here in terms of managing the base load. And so here, there's a customer in Estonia who we helped to save 30% energy. Wow. And that's big, for data centers that, of course, consume quite a bit of that these days.
So software eats the world, AI eats software, and connecting the real and digital world makes it somehow fuels AI in the right application that is purposeful. So that's pretty cool. So coming to the last pillar is actually a bit of, from the industrial grade, from your mental model, let's say, is the democratization. I think it's amazing to see how the adoption of such complex technologies like transformers, GPT, previously was, from geeks for geeks, let's say, from experts for experts, and now it's like for everyone, right? So that's quite impressive, right? We all give the stats of adoption rate of 1 billion within no times, obviously on GPT levels, right? How do you see it at Siemens? How do we make AI more accessible for everyone, for our customers, for our partners, but actually from top floor to shop floor, right? Everyone accessible. Can you guide us through?
Yeah, so one of the things that I said earlier is, how can we make sure that we not only serve big global key accounts that we have a lot of people typically taking care of. But how can we actually make things more accessible for small, medium-sized enterprises as well? How can we develop solutions that are really plug and play, scalable and plug and play? And I would say our low-code development platform, Mendix, is an example like that. It's accessible through the Siemens Accelerator. And here developers at all skill levels really have a chance to build enterprise-grade web and mobile applications much faster and at a lower cost. And like I said, you just go in, you have a chance to interact very easily and intuitively and get to something very quickly that otherwise you wouldn't have been able to do. If I think about our people, now how do we democratize access to this? We now have round about 100,000 unique users on our Siemens own ChatGPT. Here we go. Yeah.
Also, this script was validated by Siemens GPT, to bring things fair. But we reviewed, right? We revised the script as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
So, and is 100K the truth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We validate human-led. We have a nice dashboard. Actually, everyone has access. Spoiler alert: everybody has access to the stats actually on the adoption, which is pretty cool because everyone in Siemens sees who is adopted that and how many models are being used. Right. So pretty cool. Hashtag IT rocks now.
Yeah, and if I just give you a few other examples, we talked about the industrial co-pilot, and I said, we leave our business cards with our customers by simply inviting them to our own factory. So we have the industrial co-pilot up and running in 2 of our own factories by now, and it's really cool because we wanted to make sure that we help maintenance engineers save time because they're stretched from a capacity perspective, and we found that we were augmenting maintenance technicians who are now much more confident in making sure that they attend to machines, whether it's at night when the engineers, are no longer on shift, or, the younger people who have maybe less experience, who are now, much more confident with the help of AI. And the last example that I would give is we have something which we call the My Learning World. You're obviously very familiar with that, where anybody can go in and find relevant learning programs. And in China and the US, we now have Gen AI Help Out, where I can really interact with My Learning World directly and say, look, I'm trying to learn this, what would you recommend? And, if then suggestions come back, you can ask, the AI, help me understand what this curriculum really does or doesn't do. And so there's a way of really personalizing your learning journeys that is amazing through AI technology.
Yeah, that opens up incredible avenues of opportunities as well. And I mean, both of your examples with the Copilot, but also My Learning World having now Gen AI features are really, really cool examples or testaments to human-machine interactions and very effectively so. And it also shows how AI is now somehow like supercharging human agency. So previously, maybe a person on the shop floor wasn't able to operate a certain machine, and now I'm able to do that together with my Copilot. And maybe if we look at this from a little bit of a broader perspective, like you're leading a pretty big company, right? We have a few colleagues around, like 310,000 people here at Siemens. How do you believe our working world will look like as we continue to embracing AI? And how are you actually approaching that huge challenge to really empowering people to embrace AI at scale? So yeah, what is something that we should learn or do, or how are you approaching that?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say I don't have a crystal ball. So anybody who says they know exactly what happens in 10 years, they're either have so much more foresight than I do, or maybe they're not entirely honest about what they can see today or not. But one of the things that we do know is we are all touched by AI one way or another. So AI will enter our lives, has entered our lives, and sometimes maybe even without knowing us. Because our smartphones maybe now may have features that we're not even aware of are AI powered. Yeah? So I think it'll find us, and I think that's a good thing that it finds us not only in work but also in our private lives, because I think that lowers the barriers in terms of am I willing to embrace this new technology or not. I think jobs and tasks are impacted differently. Yeah? So I think AI comes for tasks and not for jobs, and I think in some jobs jobs, that will mean that maybe 15% of the tasks that make up your job might be impacted. In others, it might be 50, 60%. So I think that will vary very much where you are and what your line of work is. But I think regardless of where you are, one of the things that is absolutely paramount for me is how do we get people back to learning? So how do we learn to learn? How do we embrace learning strategies? Because if the shelf life of knowledge is coming down, it is not about what you know today. It is about your ability to acquire the relevant knowledge quickly enough, but then complement that with technology that is going to be smarter than we will ever be anyway. So I think for me, it's about embracing that. And we do a lot in Siemens to invest into learning, but also to help people address that mindset shift. Because if you're out of formal learning, or if you have been out of formal learning for a long time, then, doing formal learning again, it can be quite intimidating. So there's also something about how close to the place of work can we actually bring learning, and that certainly includes things like AI as well. And we make a huge investment in learning every year. We spend about 440 million into upskilling and reskilling our people. But again, the more playful we can make that in terms of bringing technology to people, the easier it is.
So then let's talk about leadership, right? So in having this transition, obviously it's about a technical, maybe, moving towards more software, more data-driven, a more AI-driven company, but it's then also a cultural change in terms of, the mindsets, the culture, the attitudes, the behaviors, right? How do you equip leaders we have a couple of leaders and managers in Siemens, have we, right?
About 25,000, yes.
25,000, is that's... So everyone is a leader anyway, as well, in our organization. But how do you equip them that they navigate this somehow? Transformation is a big word, but in terms of this cultural, habitats and shift in embracing a more AI-powered workforce, AI-driven and AI-first organization.
Yeah, and let me maybe start with a bit of a cop-out answer, because I think it's agnostic of AI. I think AI is just representative for change that is coming ever faster, and the necessity for learning is just exacerbated. But I think at the end of the day, there's been a change in what we expect of people who lead people. Now, if we define leadership as people who lead people for the last X many years, because I think we used to promote people who were smarter than others. They were the best individual contributors in a certain field, and then we decided to give them people to manage. And I think today we know that the best people managers are much more about coaching, guidance, providing clarity and direction when that is needed. Delegating not only tasks but also information and resources, delegating decision making, but staying close when help is needed. And we know that in the context of learning and the adoption of new technologies like AI, it is about psychological safety. So do I actually feel that I'm allowed to say, I don't know, or could you show me, or, I'm not quite sure where to start. And that can be very scary if you don't feel that you have a team and a people manager who encourages you to come out. And I learned a long time ago that there's a big difference between proving or improving yourself. If I live in fear that I need to prove the whole time that I'm worthy of being here, that typically very much gets in the way of learning. If you are somewhere where you're encouraged to improve, magic happens.
And I hope that this space is also psychologically safe as we're speaking. Maybe to add to what you just mentioned about that fear aspect, and earlier you also said that since we have to constantly learn again, that might also be a little intimidating to people. And in fact, there are even studies out there, and quite a recent one now, is stating that 57% of workers are actually hiding that they're using AI tools because they fear that they might be seen as lazy, or they might be deemed replaceable, or they might be seen as less competent. What's your view on that? Have you maybe also experienced that? Or do you think we can just cope with that through leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these things are really decided on the ground, and that goes back to what kind of culture does every team have and live. But of course, it's brilliant if people adopt the technology, and if that means that they can free up some of their time or they get to better outcomes, that's brilliant. And who wouldn't want that, right? Because then we can jointly think about how the time that you do have at your disposal now, newly, how that could be used meaningfully. And if you get to better outcomes using the technology, that's brilliant. And if you think back to the day and age of Excel, so nobody would today think that unless you used your calculator or did it in your head, you were more worthy than somebody who programmed an Excel formula. So, I mean, I think it's the same here with AI. And I think there are some things that will remain deeply human. Our need for connection, our interconnected thinking as well. And whilst the AI can do certain parts of creativity, others it will never be able to do. And to your point around hallucination, we do need people with critical thinking skills. I think it's really paramount that we don't hand everything over to the technology, but that we still keep our critical inquiry skills as well, and a sense check as to what the technology suggests really is truthful. So I think there's plenty that will be there for humans to do and to add value, and of course it's important that people managers support that.
So tech positivity, I'm hearing.
Not only an AI will be the new Excel, but the Excel needs to be validated by us because the 80% solution should be still on the human side, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Judith, actually time is flying. We have so many more questions, but we know that you're also very, very busy. So as we approach the end of this podcast, we wanted to play our signature game with you. And we were playing this even long before ChatGPT, right, Uli?
For sure, long before any LSTM, RNN, or ChatGPT comes with autocomplete, right?
Yeah, authentic autocomplete. And I would throw out a few sentence starters, and I would love for you to complete them. Are you ready for the final challenge of this podcast?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So here we go. Leadership in the age of AI means...
a deep sense of human kindness and wanting to make other people succeed.
All right. People will always
seek connection. I think it's deeply a deep human need, and so we need to cater for that.
That's beautiful. Technology with purpose is
us. I think it's Siemens.
Okay, then last but not least, a super easy one. If I could invent one rule for everyone in the world to follow, it would be?
So for me, that is injecting positive energy. And whether it's an interaction between two people or whether it's a larger interaction, for me, there's something about energy and the flow of energy. And we all know people who give us energy, and we know people who suck energy, and so I think there's something about injecting positive energy that will make a huge difference.
And this podcast was deeply energizing.
Extreme optimism and positive, right? Yes. So thanks so much, Judith, for your time, for being open, that clear, actually also this passion for AI. Thanks for joining us in this podcast.
Thank you for the two of you.
Yeah, and folks out there, geeks, AI enthusiasts, follow obviously Judith on LinkedIn and other papers, medias, social medias, and so on. Stay bold, committed, and open-minded, and we hear us at the next Siemens AI Lab podcast. Cheers.